In this last video for task 1C, we're going to look at mastering. A couple of things I need to say before we start this one is Edexcel does not require you to do mastering. So if you don't feel that you have got to grips with it and you don't want to do it, it's not essential to do it, so don't worry about that. The reason I feel that mastering is a good thing to do is purely because it makes it more consistent. Your mixes, all three tasks, more consistent across all headphones, okay? So that's one reason I would say, but it also makes it more consistent from track to track. So when the examiner's listening to your tracks and you've mastered them just using these basic templates, you'll find that you won't need to, or the examiner won't need to adjust his headphone volume. So that's the reason we're going to master, but once again, it's not essential to your coursework, okay? The other thing is this is just going to be a quick overview of mastering. If you have already seen the Task 1A course, there is a really good, really in-depth mastering video in that one. So that's the one, if you really don't understand what I'm talking about in this one, that's the one you need to go and watch, okay? Because this one's just going to recap on a few things, just basically showing you how to use the mastering template that we created in that course for this particular project as well. Okay, with that said, let's crack on. So here we are in the mixing template. The first thing we need to do is actually just bounce the track down. So all I do is put my loop cursor across the whole track, and what you'll notice that I've given myself a little bit more. Because I've got quite a long reverb tail, I've actually just given myself an extra bar, just so I don't cut off my reverb tail. It's really important that you don't cut off any reverb tails. The other thing you need to remember about this track is it has to be between 2 and 3 minutes. So here I've got a 2:14 14. It's unlikely that you'll be penalised if you are massively below 3 minutes, but it is worth remembering that actually, you know, it has to be a full arrangement, okay? So make sure you're definitely above 2 minutes. So set your cursor up all the way across, press the bounce button. I've already gone ahead of time and done this, and you need to look at your own settings. So I'm just going to use this PCM uncompressed format with these particular settings. It works for mine. Depending on how you've set up your project, you may have to change these, okay? You don't want to do any compression at this point. You want to leave all the compression to the mastering template, okay? Once you do that, bounce it down to your mastering template. I'm going to cancel this because I've already done this. We're going to head over to the mastering template. So over here, you'll see my task 1A that I've already bounced down earlier. Now I have this task 1C, House with Seven Nation Army, and I always like to label them unmastered, and sometimes I'll say 1.1, because the idea with mastering is you will probably go between the mixing template and the mastering template quite a bit, making changes. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to fix mixing problems in the mastering template. So if you hear something that's massively out, you will probably have to go back to the mixing, fix it, do another bounce down, and so on. So it's very common to have multiple takes here whilst you try and get it right, okay? So I've got my bit here, and if you remember, we from task 1A we set up this mastering template. So if you double click in here and open up your mastering template, and you'll get this one. Now we had the task 1A project here, the La 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 project, which already mastered, we've already bounced down. So your next mission is just to come to this new track and just drag it on, okay, so that it populates here. Now we don't have to really change anything, we just have to check that everything works. Now if you remember with the mastering template, we've already set it up in our output channel. We've already set up all these three things: a little bit of EQ, a spreader, which actually, looking ahead of time, didn't really work for me, so I've just turned it off for this particular mix, and then a limiter. All this is already set up. I've got a headroom in my track, so the likelihood of mine ducking is really minimal actually, so I didn't have to worry about that. But if for some reason you didn't manage to keep your mix below 0 dB, you will have to check for ducking here, okay? You don't want too much ducking. Once again, if you want to check out these settings, please go back to the Task 1A mixing video, and you'll get all these settings from there and how to set up your own template. Now what I like to do is listen through the track time and time again, okay? Compare and contrast, turn these on, turn them off. You will have to do quite a lot of listening to make sure you don't mess up your track. It's very common to mess up your track in the mastering section. All you're trying to do is make it more consistent, and the way we do that is bring everything up to kind of 0 dB and make it commercially ready. Okay, so with our limiter, we've just basically got this gain output. Now if I just press play, you shouldn't see too much gain reduction. If you start getting loads and loads and loads, it's because you haven't kept your mix below 0 dB, and at that point you're going to have to watch out for any kind of ducking. So let me just play the loudest part of my track. Now look at this volume here. This is how close we're coming to this 0 dB. Remember, we don't really want to change too much here. The more we change here, it's going to affect our first bounce down, okay? So we definitely want to keep it the same. If you notice that actually mine's too low, you might want to go back to the mix and just try and sort some things out there. This isn't too much of a problem. 0.3 of a decibel is not much of a problem. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I've probably got it up here, to be fair. So let's keep listening. And there it is. We're up within a couple of beats. We're actually capped it now. Okay, so with that done, we just need to do one more thing, and that's just come over to the automation. Now I like to keep my fade-ins and fade-outs for the mastering stages. I don't tend to do this during the mixing stages if I can help it, because it's just slightly easier. So you'll notice my long reverb tail here, and I've just done a nice little fade here. Okay, so if I just press play, okay, and that's nice enough. No reverb tails cut off, and that just works. Once we've done that, we can zoom back in. We can turn on the loop. Now remember, you need to set this output probably just after the fade out. So I'm just going to leave it at this kind of 68 point. And that's where we're going to do our bounce down. If you're happy with your mix and you've listened to it over and over and over again, another thing you can compare and contrast is with the actual La 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 track as well. So just mute this, unmute that, and vice versa, just to hear the La 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 track, and make sure when you're listening from one track to another, it just works, okay? Another thing, before you press the bounce down button, that you need to remember is that these other tracks, task A and task B, need to be muted. If they are unmuted, that track will turn up on this bounce down, and we don't want that, okay? So make sure they're muted, and when you're ready, press the bounce down. After you've bounced it down, make sure you listen to your track again. And one thing I like to do with my bounce downs, in much the same way that I did with my mix, is just call it mastered, okay? So we've got this unmastered, just change this to mastered, and it tells me that that's been mastered and all is good, okay? That's pretty much all I have to say about this particular project. I hope you found that useful. I hope you got lots of stuff out of that, and that you do really well. Now, just a final thought, let's make sure we get our logbook sorted. Remember, you've got 20 marks for this project on the logbook, and that's a huge amount to lose if you don't do the logbook properly. We're looking for 10 points for the song and 10 points for the actual style, okay? It's not necessary to have 10 points, but that's what I tell my students to try and get. It's 10 points for each, and what you're looking for is what was the feature and how did you use it, okay? So explain to the examiner what the feature is of the song or the style and how you used it in your piece, or where it can be found in your piece. It's a really easy 20 marks to get, so don't lose those 20 marks, okay? But anything you reference from the song or from the style, make sure it is in your piece, because the examiner will check for that, okay? That's all I've got to say. Good luck, and I'll see you in the exam prep.